What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Well, the NFL season is officially over. The Chiefs defeat the 49ers 25-22 in Super Bowl 58. Ended up being an excellent game, very exciting. It didn't look that way in the beginning, but really picked up there near the end. Matt is going to join me in just a minute to break it all down. What does it mean? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? The whole Super Bowl podcast coming up. But before we get started, a couple show notes. There will be no Fouled Out next week, unfortunately. I will be on a work trip to Mexico, and it's very difficult for me to record on the road and get out something good for you guys on time. So we'll be off next week and then back the week after to talk NBA for a couple weeks until we switch over to March Madness on March 19th, the Wednesday before the tournament starts. So we have that. That will lead us right into NFL draft month in April, and then back into the NBA playoffs. So a lot of really fun stuff coming up, even though football's over, a lot to look forward to. And then one other thing before we get started, I've been sick for almost a week now. I have a really bad cough. So I'm going to be chewing cough drops throughout the episode to make sure I'm not coughing directly into your guys' ears. Hopefully that doesn't make me annoying to listen to, or at least not more annoying than I typically am to listen to as a lifelong Boston sports fan. So I apologize for that ahead of time. And if my voice sounds a little bit scratchy, I feel like it's every third or fourth podcast I'm sick, but that's because I have a 2-year-old at home, or an almost 2-year-old. And those are the joys of parenthood. All the parents out there who listen to this know that when you wake up in the middle of the night to hear your kid coughing, you know it's coming for you and your wife soon. So that's what happened to us in this house. And we're dealing with the after effects of that, but going to try to make your listening experience as enjoyable as possible. So we'll try not to let it affect the podcast too much. But let's go get Matt and let's talk about Super Bowl 58. Let's go. All right, Matt is here. Fresh off the Super Bowl where the Chiefs won 25-22. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
A lot better than Nick Bosa having to watch a black quarterback win the Super Bowl again.
Tough for him, I'm sure. It's funny, there was a lot
It's
of
his worst nightmare.
I try not to talk politics on the podcast because that's not what we're here for, and nobody really cares about how I feel about things. But a lot of upset conservatives with the results of the Super Bowl. Was not on my bingo card that a team from Kansas City would win the Super Bowl and that conservatives would be pissed off about it.
There are certain things that are only political to you if you are absolutely on the wrong side of a major humanitarian issue.
So Chiefs win the Super Bowl 25-22. I was sitting and reflecting over the last couple days. It's Tuesday. So we've had about 48 hours since the Super Bowl. And I was thinking that I've pulled an Anakin Skywalker in my life and that I've become everything that I swore to destroy. Back before we had a podcast, I used to listen to another football podcast that I am not going to name because we don't do free advertising on the show. If you would like to have your podcast named on Fouled Out, you're more than welcome to contact us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com, and pay us, and we will mention your podcast by name. And that also goes for any other product, as that if you want us to say your thing on this podcast, we will do that for money.
You guys really cannot underestimate how little money it will take.
It depends on the thing. So I can be bought. I have a price. I'm willing to do anything, but the price is going to change drastically based on what I have to say on the podcast. If they're like, we want you to advertise Tom Brady's podcast, I'll be like, okay, $1. And you have to let me get a selfie with Tom. If you want me to, like, I don't know, advertise something horrible, I'll do it.
God,
it's just going to be more expensive.
What's the Paul George podcast?
I'm not saying the name of another podcast on here for free. But
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
It's podcast P.
God, it's that bad.
Yeah. Any NBA player podcast is like the top of my list for this is going to be very expensive for me to advertise. Anyway, I used to listen to this other NFL podcast. And this guy on the podcast, every single postseason, would pick against the Patriots all of the time. And I was like, when is this guy going to learn? The Patriots just keep winning. Like and it was clear that he's just picked against the Patriots because he hated them. And it was like Pittsburgh versus the Patriots in New England. Who's going to win? And he'd be like, oh, I think Pittsburgh's going to win for all these reasons. Sure enough, Patriots would win. Then they'd come back on the podcast and it'd be like, okay, Patriots Falcons Super Bowl. Who's going to win? And he'd be like, I think it's the Falcons. I used to get so annoyed. I'm like, just admit that you hate the Patriots and you hate the dynasty, and that's why you keep picking against them. And I was like, man, when I have a podcast, I'm not going to pick against the dynasty team just because I hate them. But here I am, AFC Championship and in the Super Bowl, I picked against the Chiefs. And I was like, oh, well, I don't hate the Chiefs. I just have good football reasons for picking against them. And then as I got pissed off watching the ball bounce off of someone's leg on a punt and get it recovered by the Chiefs to completely flip the game, I was like, oh, God damn it. I hate the Chiefs. I've become what I've sworn to destroy. Son of a bitch.
Acknowledging it is the first step to recovery.
So 2 days removed, I don't think I hate the Chiefs. Actually, I kind of don't care about them that much, except for the fact that they're good and they keep winning the Super Bowl. I think it's annoying and asinine that anybody's comparing Patrick Mahomes to Tom Brady right now, but like I understand why. Like if you want to say he's on the Tom Brady trajectory or he's on a trajectory to possibly be the GOAT someday, I totally agree with you. Mm-hmm. But I've seen way too much shit in the past 48 hours of like, he's past Tom Brady already, or like, look at where he is when he's 29 versus where Tom Brady was when he was 29. And it's like really close, but Patrick Mahomes stats are okay. Don't need all that. But I got to get over it this offseason because I think it's like malpractice from here on out if we don't come back on the podcast, on the picks pod next year and pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like who right now, and I'm not saying like let's do way too early Super Bowl rankings, but who are you picking to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl next year?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not feeling good about any team. The only team that like I sat there like watching and I was like, oh well, they might have done it is the Lions because they did beat them. But even then, like it's the Super Bowl. So Patrick Mahomes is gonna win the Super Bowl.
I was gonna say I've heard this from all of my Detroit friends the last couple of days. Is everybody's just like, oh, I'm just pissed because the Lions should have won the Super Bowl.
We should have had a chance.
No, yes. But I think it's really cute that Detroit fans think that after all of the horrible shit that has happened and continually happens to this franchise, and all of the things that go Patrick Mahomes' way over the course of a football game and over the course of a season, that you would ever beat him in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like week one is totally different, but watch this game, watch how the game was going, and then watch the things that happen that go in the Chiefs' favor that only go in the favor of a team like the Chiefs. And I'm not talking about like the refs were on their side or it was rigged by the NFL. I mean, like Dre Greenlaw was dominating the early part of that football game. He was playing really well. Mm-hmm. His Achilles explodes randomly coming off of the sideline. And the San Francisco 49ers have to put in this backup, Burks, who just gets absolutely shredded the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I sent you the thing the other day, but they were like 9 for 9 targeting Burks for 135 yards and a touchdown. So it's almost like the Chargers thing where if you told me that a team had this horrific loss, I would be like, oh, that must have been the Chargers. If you tell me the best or one of the best defensive players on the opposing team's Achilles exploded for no apparent reason, trying to come off the sideline, and that a team got a benefit from that, I would be like, oh, that was the Chiefs. They were obviously playing the Chiefs. Because who else gets that kind of break in a football game? Right? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then
on that stage.
And then you have a punt randomly hit a dude in the back of the leg, which like becomes a muff, and then you get the ball and you score a touchdown. Like, I'm not saying the Chiefs did anything wrong. I'm not saying anybody cheated. I'm not saying anything's rigged. I'm just saying that a lot like the Patriots dynasty, the Chiefs do not shoot themselves in the foot. They play good football. They play mistake-free football for the most part, and they let the other team fuck up. And when you do that, the other team almost always does fuck up, and these horrible things happen.
As long as Kadarius Toney isn't out there, like, you can rely on the players to kind of handle things. Andy Reid still kind of, his clock management is not great. If that's the Achilles heel you're going for, yeah, you're gonna lose 95% of those games.
The clock management thing feels like it stopped mattering as soon as he got Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Because it's just like, oh, Patrick, I screwed up. I need you to throw a 40-yard touchdown with 3 seconds left.
15 seconds to score a touchdown.
That's the thing. It's like we messed up the clock. We only have 15 seconds to go 86 yards. And he's like, I got you, coach. Or it's like,
yeah,
Patrick, I screwed up the clock. I need you to throw a 40-yard touchdown to win the game. And he's like, oh, don't worry, coach. I got you. Like, Patrick Mahomes is the great problem solver, right? It doesn't matter. These other little mistakes that your team might make throughout the course of a game, because he can erase them because he's that good.
I see a lot of this narrative, like, after the Super Bowl, that it's like, oh, well, like, Andy Reid couldn't get it done for so long, but now he's one of the greatest ever. Like, Andy Reid didn't change. He just got Patrick Mahomes. That is not, like, if that is the saving grace you are waiting for Kyle Shanahan, good luck, because that trade ain't happening. He's not hitting the open market.
Yeah, Andy Reid was always a great coach and a great offensive mind.
Yeah.
Recently, I saw this video on TikTok where this guy was ranking the top Eagles running backs of all time. I think he had Brian Westbrook at number 2 and then LaShawn McCoy at number 1. And I was like, oh, there's no way. This is blasphemy. And then I went back and looked at both of their stats. And I was like, okay, holy shit. Not only is he correct.
Was fucking dirty.
Yeah. Not only is that the correct take, but also just look at the last couple of years of Brian Westbrook in Philadelphia's stats and then the first couple of years of LaShawn McCoy's stats. Holy shit, man. Is this guy good at like scheming up an offense and getting the ball into the hands of his best players? Because like we're talking multiple seasons of like 1,800 total yards and 20 touchdowns for both those guys. But yes, the correct take there is that LaShawn McCoy is the best running back in Eagles history. Just go back and look at the stats, man.
Yeah.
That was kind of the thing with Shanahan is like, okay, well, Andy Reid was always seen as a choker and finally broke out of it. Kyle Shanahan, also a well-known choker. People wanted to think that he could break out of it, right? And it was just like, well, yeah, he blew 28-3 to Tom Brady. And they blew the lead in the last Super Bowl, but that was with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, below average quarterback. The 49ers took their swing at that big breakout, and to get that like high caliber, maybe not Patrick Mahomes level, but they make that huge trade to get the 3rd pick in the NFL draft a couple of years ago. And they pick Trey Lance, who ends up being a bust. And it's like, okay, that was your shot to do it. You have Purdy, which is how you got here, is that you still have a pretty good quarterback. But the big evolutionary guy is not coming. That doesn't just happen for everybody. And that's the other funny thing coming out of the Super Bowl is, and I know I keep talking about the Pats, but I promise it's coming back to Patrick Mahomes. So a lot of people in my circles, a lot of Patriot people have been talking about what to do with the 3rd pick. And there's a big debate between, do you take Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's there, or do you take one of these quarterbacks? And a lot of people I know watch this Super Bowl and they're like, well, obviously wide receivers don't win Super Bowls, quarterbacks do. We need to draft a quarterback. And if he's not special, we just go and like try to get another one until we get a special one. Quarterbacks do win Super Bowls, but they don't win Super Bowls without weapons. Patrick Mahomes wins Super Bowls. You are not drafting Patrick Mahomes. I don't care where you're drafting. If you have the first pick in the draft, if you have the third pick in the draft, you're not drafting a quarterback who's this special that he has the ability to win a Super Bowl with bad weapons. I mean,
Yeah.
at least not great weapons. And he also just became the first quarterback ever to win a Super Bowl while having the biggest cap hit in the league. We've talked for years now about how having a quarterback on his rookie deal is a massive advantage because you can build the roster around him, and how typically these super teams like the Legion of Boom Seattle Seahawks tend to fall apart once the quarterback gets paid. Well, Patrick Mahomes is so special that he's now making that not matter.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, you could just build this team around me and I'll make up for the deficiencies and we'll still win Super Bowls. I mean, for God's sakes, they traded away Tyreek Hill 2 years ago. He's one of the best receivers in the league, and they've won 2 Super Bowls without him.
Yeah.
The lesson here is not quarterbacks don't need weapons. Like, teams should not go and start shedding their weapons and being like, oh, we don't need them to win a Super Bowl. Every other quarterback in the league needs weapons to win Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes.
If your plan is to go get the wide receiver at number 3, you need to have a very clear plan on what your plan is at quarterback. Because obviously it can't be Mac Jones. But like, to just expect that you're going to get your Patrick Mahomes in the draft is also a fallacy. Like, you don't just get that. And you have to create a plan, like, knowing that there's these certain realities in the NFL. And if you just draft and sign guys in a fantasy land, it's all going to fall apart.
We always talk about how the NFL is a copycat league.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be really interesting to see what lesson teams take from the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the incorrect lesson is we don't need good wide receivers to win a Super Bowl. I think the correct lesson here is that if you have an extremely nasty secondary, it'll give you an opportunity to win a Super Bowl or at least compete, because like everybody's gushing over Patrick Mahomes right now, and like well deserved.
Yep.
He played an excellent game, goes down, gets the game tying field goal with 3 seconds left, goes down in overtime, scores the game winning touchdown. Like, he deserves all the credit in the world. But the Chiefs defense has not gotten enough credit throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I know we joked about this last week because people were like, well, can we give the Chiefs defense credit for their win over the Ravens? And we were like, yes, we can. They were awesome. They've been awesome.
Yeah. Like, nobody is sitting here this week and talking about Snead and McDuffie, right? But like, those are 2 of the most crucial players in determining the outcome of that game.
I can't get over the McDuffie thing. Fucking, do you know who traded Kansas City the pick that they used to draft McDuffie?
I'm gonna go with the Pats.
It was. And do you know who the Patriots picked with the pick they got back from Kansas City?
Nobody good.
Cole Strange.
Pain.
Go back to our podcast. I think it's like episode 79 or episode 80. We did a draft recap of that year. And the last 15 minutes of the podcast is called Homer Corner, where I reacted to the Patriots draft and you reacted to the Lions. And I was apoplectic that we didn't just draft Trent McDuffie at 21 and that we gave it to Kansas City. I'm go back and listen. I'm absolutely beside myself about like, why would we not just take Trent McDuffie? Why are we giving him to the Chiefs? Here we are 2 years later. He's a goddamn all-pro and was incredible in the Super Bowl. It's going to be a pick I'm not going to get over. It's like taking Sony Michel over Lamar Jackson. Fuck it. Ugh. It's a tough one, but I mean, that's how the Eagles kind of made it to the Super Bowl last year too, is that, really good pass rush, really good secondary with Bradbury and I wanted to say Dre Bly, but
no.
I meant Darius Slay.
Yeah.
Same thing. It was former Lions corner that had gone to another team. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
James Bradbury, Dre Bly, those guys.
Same person.
Yeah. The Chiefs defense had a similar model, like good pass rush with Chris Jones. George Karlaftis played well. And then just like really good secondary. Locked people down, didn't allow very many big plays throughout the course of the entire playoffs, even though they went up against the Bills, Ravens, and the 49ers. So I had the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Obviously, last week I picked them. I bet them -1.5. And for large portions of the game, I felt like I was correct. I was like, oh, that was a good pick, Adam. Good job. Because they came out, they're dominating. Travis Kelce is like screaming at Andy Reid on the sideline and bumping into him. Patrick Mahomes looks like the game is going too fast for him. Like the Chiefs were a mess to start that game. And I was like, oh man, 49ers get a 10-point lead, start running on them. And there was points in the game where it felt like the 49ers should have been up by 17, 21, 24. Like it felt like it should have been a lot worse than it was.
Yeah.
And that's also kind of how I knew that my pick was incorrect. Because when you should be up by 21 on Patrick Mahomes, you need to be up by 21 on Patrick Mahomes.
You need to be up at least 28 on Patrick Mahomes.
You can't like let Mahomes and Reed and Spagnuolo hang around long enough and have a chance to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because they will. And they did. And you can point to a lot of things that went wrong for the 49ers in this game and say like, oh, this is why they lost. This is why they lost. But to me, ultimately, what it comes down to is I just didn't feel like they were aggressive enough. You talked about it last week that against Patrick Mahomes, they're going to have to take the game. They're going to have to go for the kill.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they had multiple chances to do that or at least act like it. And they decided to kick field goals instead. And I think that was where the game was truly lost. Like they go down, they get a field goal with 1 minute and 53 seconds left to go up 3, 19-16. And I text you. And I was like, dude, I'm in my FanDuel account trying to cash out all my bets right now. And even though the 49ers were up 3 with 1 minute and 53 seconds left, FanDuel completely locked everything. They're like, you ain't cashing out shit. We all know what's about to happen here. And we all did know. We all knew what was going to happen. And then we watched it happen. Mahomes goes down, gets a field goal. We go to overtime. 49ers win the coin toss, get the ball first. I've heard this take a lot the last couple of days that they strategically messed up in overtime. Do you agree with that?
I don't know that I'd go that far. I personally, knowing the changes and the rules, probably would have preferred to start off on defense, though. Because then I know what I need. And, like, I think Dan Orlovsky actually put it really perfectly. Like, when you're the second team with the ball in that situation, you have 4 downs. No matter what, right? So, you gave Patrick Mahomes 4 downs. And that's not a recipe for success.
So I vehemently disagree with that. And that's exactly the take that I've heard the last couple of days that I disagree with. And I'll tell you guys why. It's really it's 2 reasons. One, you can just act like that anyway. When you have to, why do you not?
But it's Kyle Shanahan. He's not going to do that.
I know he doesn't, but I'm talking about just strategically in general.
Yeah.
Why can't you go for it on 4th down if you get the ball first?
Are you doing that at your own 30 when you get the ball first, though?
This was point 2. When Patrick Mahomes is on the other side, yes.
Yeah.
I think you should. Because the only way the 49ers were winning that game in overtime is go score a touchdown, because we 100% know Patrick Mahomes is also going to go score a touchdown.
Right.
And when that happens, you get the ball back with sudden death rules.
Yeah.
So it's literally the only way they win this game is go score a touchdown, and then Patrick Mahomes scores a touchdown and either goes for 2 or you get the ball back tied and you can go kick a game-winning field goal. And if Patrick Mahomes scores and goes for 2, I like my odds a lot more of stopping Patrick Mahomes on one play than I do of liking like stopping him on an entire drive.
Yeah.
Right.
I
So I don't want to
and
be in the situation where Mahomes gets a touchdown and then
no.
I have to go down and score. Like I know I need a touchdown, but I still have to go score one. And then I still have to give him the ball back and it's sudden death. And all he has to do is get Butker to like his own 30 and he's going to nail the field goal because I feel like Butker
Right.
could just hit it from anywhere.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on any of that. I think the reality is, and we both know it, there's only one coach in the NFL that would ever go into that situation with that level of aggression.
I know you're talking about Dan Campbell, but
Yeah.
the whole reason I even thought of this in the first place is because Bill Belichick did this against Peyton Manning before, where
Yeah.
he went for it on like 4th and 2 from their own 35.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm not giving the ball back to Peyton Manning and letting Peyton Manning decide the game.
Yeah.
The Patriots don't get the 4th and 2, and Peyton Manning does go decide the game. But this is like where I would like to have someone like Dan Campbell just be like, I'm not letting Patrick Mahomes decide the game.
Yeah.
So like the 49ers get the ball with 5 minutes and 36 seconds left, something like that. And I look at my wife and I was like, this is their chance to win the game. I told her they have to drain this entire clock and kick a game-winning field goal. If they do anything else besides get the game-winning points with no time left on this clock, the Chiefs are winning.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, if you know that, why would you bet on the 49ers? And I was like, that's a really good fucking question. It's a really good question. You know that if the game is close late and Patrick Mahomes is on one side and Kyle Shanahan is on the other side, it can only end one way.
Yeah.
They had to be up like 34-19 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or else it wasn't happening.
I was really trying to help you see the light last week.
I know. I appreciate your help, but I still don't feel like my thinking was wrong. Even though the outcome was wrong.
No, we didn't disagree on the X's and O's at all. I was just like, Kyle Shanahan's gonna fuck this up.
This is the thing that's so funny about this game is that you listen to so many people talk about football and they're like, oh, well, people get too caught up in narratives and don't like think about X's and O's enough. But the problem last week is I got too caught up in the X's and O's and didn't think about the narratives. And
both of those things can happen.
But sometimes the thing that matters is the fact that Kyle Shanahan is a legendary choker and that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
And that he's just going to win these type of games.
I do love that I came out on top here after you flaunted your slight lead in the records on me.
I still beat you in the records.
I know, but the Super Bowl counts for more.
The Super Bowl. This is like one of those things where it's like you're playing basketball in the backyard and you're like, all right, this next shot counts for 4. Like, what? Wait, what?
It's the most important game of the year. It counts as at least 2.
The final record, I was 10-3. You were 9-4. So I did win, but you're right. Like, because of this game, I don't feel like I won.
Yeah.
You know? Especially because I had to watch the Chiefs win another Super Bowl. Sick of it. Damn it. And I understand the irony. The game ended. They score that touchdown. I look at Marley and I'm like, all right, give me the remote. I'm turning this off. And she's like, why are you upset about this? You watched your team win every year forever. How could anyone... She's like, how could anyone ever be happy for you when your team just wins all the time? And I was like, nobody was happy for me. Everybody hated my team. Everyone still hates my team. We haven't won a significant game in like 5 years, and everybody fucking hates the Patriots.
I love how Marley is just like so removed from sports enough to like throw that at you like in just the perfect way.
Also, she knows me better than anybody else on earth, and she just knows like the thing to say to like twist it. But that was the thing, is that like dynasties are really, really fun when it's your team.
Yeah.
When it's any other team, objectively not fun. Right? Like, are you enjoying the Chiefs dynasty, Matt?
No, it's boring as shit.
Yeah, I'm like,
Like
it's
it's
fine.
not even that like I hate them. Like it's fine. It's just it's boring. You if you're a Chiefs fan and you like weren't always a Chiefs fan, you're a boring person.
I was talking to someone on TikTok the other day. I posted a video about how nothing matters except for having Patrick Mahomes, the one that we did like 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago. And we were like, yeah, in the midst of all this, there was one glorious Bengals versus Rams Super Bowl. And I just like, hold on to that one because it just feels like it's never coming again. Like, I kind of brought this up earlier, but who is beating them in the Super Bowl next year, or who is stopping them from getting there? Like, I'm not even talking X's and O's. We don't need to talk X's and O's
Yeah.
anymore. Football is a narrative based sport. The Bills are not doing it.
No.
The Ravens, incapable of doing it. They're gonna get to the Chiefs game next year and throw the ball 64 times. And they're gonna be like, you know what the problem was last year? The problem was that we didn't throw the ball enough. We handed it off 6 times. That was 6 too many. We need to hand it off 0. Can we hand it off negative times? No? Okay, 0 it is. All throws. Oops, all throws. We know they're not doing it. We know
Yeah.
that the Dolphins aren't doing it.
Nope.
Maybe, just maybe, my boy, Joey can come back and do it, but probably not. And then in the NFC, it's like, I agree with you. The team I feel best about is the Lions. But like I said, with all the shitty stuff that happens to you guys and all the good
Yeah.
stuff that happens to the Chiefs, that's not happening either. So
Yeah.
it's Dallas isn't making it past the first round,
No.
But like, I mean, to be real though, the bigger contenders in the AFC, the Bills and the Ravens, are going to lose pieces this offseason.
Yep.
And like, yes, it's possible that the Chiefs are going to lose pieces because they have to re-sign L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones.
Mm-hmm.
But like the other guys who you would think are going to be contenders next year are getting weaker. And it's
Yeah.
probably going to take a couple years for someone like Houston with Stroud or like Indy with Richardson to be a legitimate threat. So it is hard right now, sitting here on February 13th, to think of who's going to take these guys down and end this dynasty.
And I mean, like, you look at Cincinnati and okay, are they ever gonna actually build a genuinely good offensive line? Because if they don't do that, then they're not beating this Chiefs team. Point blank period. It's wild to just like not really see an end to this tunnel.
It will come, though. It might take 20 years, but it'll come.
Yeah.
It comes for the best of us. It's not impossible for someone to sub up next year. Like, we don't know what's going to happen this offseason.
Yeah.
We don't know what these teams are going to look like. We don't know if the Patriots are going to draft JJ McCarthy and he's going to turn out to be the greatest quarterback of all time as a rookie. We can't know that yet. So we'll see where we are next year. But like, it really does feel like we're going to come back on this podcast next year and just be like, we're not making the same mistake ever again. Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. And then like, at least that
And then
way,
we'll talk ourselves out of it.
throughout the season, we will. But I feel like if I start from that mindset, that I'll be in a better place throughout the year as I watch it happen. I'll be like, well, at least I was right, because that was my ultimate epiphany on Sunday, is that I don't hate the Chiefs. I hate being wrong. I hate losing bets. I hate coming on this podcast and having Matt lord it over me that even though my record was better than his in the playoffs, that he won the Super Bowl and that's worth 4. So he really wins. He's like, yeah, but
Damn right.
Who really wins? God damn it. So, yeah, congratulations to the Chiefs. Back-to-back Super Bowls, first team to do it since the Pats back near the beginning of the dynasty. What is this? 3 Super Bowls in 5 years now for them. They've been to 4. They've won 3 in 5 years. So got that Warriors thing going, because isn't that what the Warriors ended up winning, was 3 in 5 years?
Yeah. something like that.
Yeah, I think they won.
I think they won 3 out of 4, didn't they?
Yeah, they beat Cleveland, and then Cleveland came back and beat them in the 3-1. And then they got
Yeah,
Durant and they won 2 in a row, and then they lost to the Raptors. So yeah, it was 3 in 5 years.
yeah,
Uh, I'll call it a dynasty. I know people are like debating what's a dynasty, and I'm like, well, someone who wins 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, probably a dynasty. Like, what? I don't know. What do you have to do to
yeah.
be a dynasty to people?
At least this.
Yeah, at least like this seems like the like dynasties like the bare minimum that we could give these guys. So,
Yeah.
good on them. My other thoughts from the Super Bowl, and then we'll go to Bolds and Scolds. I thought Purdy was good. I didn't think he
Mhm.
was great. One part of the Super Bowl that really bothered me from a play calling perspective. So CMC touched the ball 30 times. That's good.
Yeah.
That's probably want him doing that. But the 49ers come out of halftime, get an interception. They call 3 passes, 3 and out, and they got to punt it. They force a punt, get the ball back, 3 passes, 3 and out. I think the Chiefs get a field goal. 49ers come out, 2 passes and a run, 3 and out. So, like, out of their first 10 plays of the second half, 9 of them were passes.
Yep.
And I was like, God damn it, you guys were doing so good. So I think CMC's workload was pretty good, but I would have liked to have seen more like Elijah Mitchell. I think he only had 3 carries. Maybe some more of those like toss sweeps and stuff to Debo would have been nice instead of Brock Purdy throwing 37 passes. There was just a time where it was too much for me.
Yeah. I mean, not that I disagree with you here, but overall, they weren't getting the production on the ground that I think a lot of people expected, that I expected, right? Because they only ran for 3.5 yards per carry on the game. And even if you just like look at the CMC, he was getting 3.6. Could there be an element of Shanahan got a little bit predictable at times? Sure, maybe. But I think the reality is that outside of that, like Spags had 2 weeks to prepare and he came ready.
Yeah,
And
if after the game they were saying they were run blitzing like
yeah,
crazy. They wanted Brock Purdy throwing the ball. And then in the second half, they were basically in cover zero the
yeah,
entire second half. And they were just sending everybody. And you can't run against that. You have to beat that with throws.
yeah,
And Brock Purdy was missing the throws that he needed to make. There was like 3 or 4 plays that could have been touchdowns where Brock Purdy either overthrew a guy or missed a guy. And a lot of that was because they had pressure right in his face.
yeah.
But it's very hard to run against like a cover zero look. Um, I would have liked to see like more screens to McCaffrey coming out of the backfield against the cover zero, something that's like a little bit easier than like Purdy has to take a 5-step drop and throw into the end zone with Chris Jones
Yeah.
bearing down on him. But that is what it is.
And that's in fairness to Purdy, like that's a situation. There's not a lot of these younger quarterbacks that are like under 30 do well with stuff like that. It takes years and years of football knowledge to be able to process that information and have the trust within the coaching staff and all that and be able to make the switches on the fly at the line of scrimmage to make sure that you have the appropriate hot reads to be able to beat that stuff. I mean, KC was able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, Tony Romo brought that up during the game and had a really, I thought like, okay, first of all, I thought Tony Romo was excellent during this game. I thought he did a good job.
It's probably his best game of the year.
Yep. But he was talking about a play. The 49ers had sent Christian McCaffrey out wide, and the Chiefs had to cover him with a linebacker. And he's like, oh, this is about to be a big play if they can get it off. and Purdy calls a timeout, and Tony was just like beside himself, and he's like, "Oh, he had it. He had CMC the matchup that they wanted,
Yeah.
but he didn't like the protection up front against the blitz look, and so instead of adjusting the protection at the line quickly, he called a timeout, which is the right thing to do for him in that scenario. But a more experienced quarterback is shifting that protection quickly
Yeah.
and calling that play because they're like, oh, fuck yeah, I got the matchup I want. Let's go. They're not wasting that. And then they never got that matchup again. So that
Yeah.
was a tough one.
And that's it's stuff like that why I have been saying for quite a while. I like quarterbacks do not hit their prime until they're like 30. Patrick Mahomes is the exception because he entered the league in his prime apparently. So
It's still so crazy to me that like he was super talented in college, but like not considered special. You know,
yeah,
he threw for like 6,000 yards or something like that at Texas Tech in a season. And people
yeah,
were like, but it's Texas Tech. Like we've seen this before. Graham Harrell set
yeah,
the NCAA record for yards and then went into the NFL as like a
it's
seventh round pick and
the
never
air
did
raid
anything.
excuse.
Yeah. And then he gets drafted in the first round and people are like, it's kind of a stretch, but could be really good eventually. He sets like 1 year and then comes in and is like automatically the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah,
You don't see shit like that.
no.
Um, the other thing, cleaning up on our fake props. So I set the over under for how many times we would see Taylor Swift at 10.5.
I feel like we went over.
We saw between kickoff and the end of the game, saw Taylor 11 times. 0.5 over. I set that line like that was nice. It
Yeah.
actually was going to go under until we went to overtime. We were at 9 at the end of the fourth quarter. And then we saw her twice in overtime. And I was like, God, I should be a line setter because
Okay.
that was perfect line.
But much like you with the 49ers, I was kind of right because I said literally 9 and then it went to overtime.
That was the thing, though. Overtime, the prop bets count in overtime for all prop
Yeah.
bets. Who had the best commercial? I think the commercials kind of sucked. I don't.
Yeah.
My favorite commercial was the Dunkin' Donuts commercial with Tom Brady and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, just because it was like the most Boston thing I've ever seen. So that was my favorite, but
I
not that it
I
was
was gonna
good.
say the Donald Faison and why am I blanking on it? Zach Braff and Jason Momoa
That one was good
commercial.
too.
Yeah. But that was 100% nostalgia for us.
I was gonna say I had a lot of nostalgia during the commercials because Tom Brady was in a lot of commercials.
Yeah.
Zach Braff and Donald Faison were in there. Do you ever watch the show Suits?
No.
It's a good. You should watch Suits. It's on Netflix. It just had like a massive resurgence in the last year for like no reason. But the two guys who were in Suits were in a couple of commercials together. So it's like watching that. I was like, oh man, this is like trip down memory lane with these Super Bowl ads. We did not see Jason Kelsey with his shirt off. He behaved
Which is a
himself.
shame.
I feel like we barely saw him. Did not get the NCAA commercial. And then the record for who said the stupidest thing, uh, I was debating. It was either Kadarius Toney saying that what did he say? He's like one of the best receivers in the league when he gets the ball.
Yeah, I think he said he's definitely a number one wide receiver when he gets the ball, which then turned into him not dressing for the game.
It's funny that the real key to the Chiefs Super Bowl run was not playing Kadarius Toney.
Yep.
And it's like I said, the Chiefs are a team that plays like disciplined, mistake-free football. And they were just like, hey, this guy is fucking up. He's not playing mistake-free football. Let's just
Yeah.
not play him. And it really changed their fortune. I
Yeah.
also saw another conservative guy, Nick Adams, went on like this whole Twitter rant about how Taylor Swift is only famous because she's dating Travis Kelce.
I saw that
And
shit.
I was like, that might be the dumbest thing anybody said during the Super Bowl. So I'm giving Nick Adams the gold medal. which in retrospect should have been obvious. And then Kadarius Toney gets the silver.
It's fucking insane.
Incredibly hot take. Like that too hot for human consumption, Nick.
That like that shit is as hot as that coffee that burned that woman's legs that she won the lawsuit.
We're going full circle here with the politics, but like we know he's a jackass anyway, but still, I was just like, that's like, even for you, it's just like an admittedly just stupid thing to say. Like it's just factually incorrect. So dumb. But let's do bolds and scolds. The last one of the football season. We can go a little longer. It doesn't have to be a lightning round because we got like 10 or 15 minutes here.
Oh baby.
I didn't write mine down. You want to go first or second?
Sure, I'll go first. I'm gonna go with Spags. I mean, he went into this game with a very clear perceived weakness on the team, and I'm not gonna say he took away the run game for the 49ers, but he made it very clear that was not a strength for them in this game. And we can talk the next 10 minutes here about Patrick Mahomes. It'd be super easy to do that, but like they don't win this game without the defense really kind of like standing firm for the vast majority of this game. And Spags is the architect of that.
Yeah, he did a really good job of saying like, what can I sacrifice in order to strengthen this weakness?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, we're just going to play cover zero and make Brock Purdy beat us because he's young and inexperienced. We don't think he can. Mm-hmm. Like if you had someone like Matt Stafford back there, I think Matt Stafford could have torched those looks and opened that game back up.
He wouldn't have dared do that to Stafford.
No.
It's been around too long.
So I cheated. I have 2 bolts. The first one is just special teams, specifically Kansas City special teams. But I just thought it was hysterical that Jake Moody goes out, San Francisco's kicker, and hits the longest kick in Super Bowl history, longest field goal in Super Bowl history, 55 yards, nails it. And like, not even like that much longer later, Butker comes out and hits one that's 2 yards longer. It's like a 57 yarder. And I was just like, man, like these kickers are going ham. And then San Francisco's special teams kind of cost them the game because they not only have the punt that goes off the dude's leg, but then Moody hits a PAT with his ankle and it gets blocked. And it's like, I think 49ers fans knew that Moody was going to fuck him at some point in this game because he's missed a kick in like each of his last 3 games.
Yeah.
And then I was like, he's going to miss this 55 yarder, and he nailed it. And I was like, oh, this might be like the Jake Moody Renaissance game. No, he just found a way to screw him later, which like, that's another thing a lot of people are saying. It's like, well, if he would have hit that PAT, then they win. And it's not necessarily true because like,
it changes so many other things over the course of the game.
Yes. Yeah. And that's like the Chiefs go down and try to get like a tying field goal. Like, do they go for a touchdown there? Obviously, if it's not for the field, like there's the whole game changes, but there's no doubt that it does hurt. Nothing good has ever come from a missed PAT in a playoff game ever.
Nope.
My other bold was it's just been a very political podcast over here. Joe Biden's social media team.
Yeah, I had to correct you on that one.
Yeah, it was going to be Joe Biden. And then Matt's like, there's no way Biden did that. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's true. Whoever the intern is that runs Joe Biden's Twitter.
Yeah.
So there was like a conservative deep state theory that the liberals were rigging the Super Bowl so that people would, I guess I don't really understand it, but like, they're like, oh, they're going to rig it so that the football fans will see Taylor Swift with Travis Kelce, and then Taylor Swift will endorse Joe Biden and more people will vote for Biden. So it's like this whole conspiracy theory. But after the game, Joe Biden's Twitter comes up and says, just what did they say? Just like we planned it or something like
Yeah.
just like we drew it up is what it said. And it's a picture of Joe Biden with the red laser eyes. And I thought it was a joke. It's like there's no way that's real. I had to go back and like verify it. It was hilarious. So
Yeah.
A+ Twitter intern.
Just that like theory. Like what the fuck?
It all goes
Yes,
back.
Taylor Swift, who's, always famously chosen a side.
It goes back to the Nick Adams thing of saying that Taylor
Yeah.
Swift is only famous because she's dating. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if the Chiefs win. If Taylor Swift came out and said, you should all vote for Biden, all of her fans are going to go vote for Biden. I don't like this didn't change anything for her.
No. Fuck.
I feel like Taylor is going to be one of those things that like it's been such funny content for the podcast that like we're like, it's so annoying. And then we're going to miss her when she's gone.
Oh yeah, no, I'm already like at the point where I'm like, you know what, like this has actually been quite nice.
We've had good jokes and content surrounding it. We've had a good
Yeah.
time with it. And it's like we're gonna start doing basketball. It's like, oh, what I have so many Taylor jokes to tell. What do I do?
Yeah, I will freely admit my initial reaction to Taylor Swift was clearly on the wrong side of things.
No, I you know what? By the end of it, I enjoyed having her. And I can't tell if it's because I actually enjoyed it or I have Stockholm syndrome from the NFL beating me over the head with it. But I like I was actually like excited when I saw her because I had the counter going. My dad and I were counting how many times you saw her. We're like, there she is, rubbing up Blake Lively.
Yeah.
What is going on with Taylor Swift and Blake Lively? There was a lot of physical contact.
Yeah, I want more details.
Who should have been more concerned on Sunday? Alicia Keys' husband, Swizz Beats, because Usher was rubbing all up on her, or Blake Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, because Taylor and her were all over each other, even walking in. And I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm here for it. I just want to know what's going on.
Give us the deets.
Who is your scold for the Super Bowl week?
Kyle Shanahan believers. Not Kyle Shanahan, because I'm not going to scold Kyle Shanahan for being Kyle Shanahan.
Although you could.
Yes, I could. It's very easy. I do it all the time. But those of you who've watched him just continue to be him and then be like, yeah, that guy, that's the guy that's going to beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. How's that going for you? It's not great.
It's funny because it's the same thing I told you about Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was just like, it's the Bills.
Yeah.
It's the Bills.
And lesson learned.
The only lesson I've learned is that you need to be more convincing to me and not let me lose money on the 49ers. I don't know why I didn't listen. The only thing I could think of after I turned the game up, I was going to bed and I was thinking about Randy Marsh over and over in my head. We didn't
listen.
I certainly did not. You know what? For scolds, I'm going back to the well here. I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
When the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl, he came out and he was like, we're going to win 7 of these motherfuckers. We're going to catch the Patriots. We're going to be a better dynasty, blah, blah, blah. He hasn't won one since. And actually, the Chiefs trade him away and win back-to-back Super Bowls without him.
Yeah.
Like, I know that he doesn't have the self-reflective skills to like look at this and be like, got it. My contributions like really didn't matter. His response basically the other day was just like, man, this only makes me want to get it done more in Miami. I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Jason Kelsey after he won one Super Bowl and started talking about a bunch of shit about the Patriots. You will never win another one. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And it's true about Jason Kelsey and it's true about Tyreek Hill. You will never win another Super Bowl, especially because the Antonio Brown shit is already like starting in with him.
Yeah.
Like there's weird Tyreek Hill stories all the time. It's like he slapped a dock worker in the face. His kid
Yep.
lit his house on fire because he was letting him play with a lighter. This like no, you're never winning another one, Tyreek, especially not in Miami. Not after what we saw this season. No, no, no. Last thought before we sign off here too, with the Chiefs and the whole dynasty thing, and thinking that we're going to come back and pick them next season. So we're going to be off. The podcast is going to be off next week. I have to go to Mexico. It's very difficult to record and to get something out and the whole thing while I'm on the road in Mexico. But we're going to start transitioning into NBA content for a couple weeks until we get to our March Madness kickoff. And I started thinking more in depth about the NBA and about where they're at this season. And we'll do like an NBA season catch up pod, probably like right after All-Star weekend. And then we'll do the hot takes pod with Clint. Because we're going to have like 3 or 4 NBA podcasts. And then we're going to get into March Madness and then the NFL draft. And then we'll come back for the NBA playoffs. But I wanted to ask you this question. Is the NBA in a better spot from a competitiveness standpoint than the NFL is right now? We're talking about like, oh God, who's going to stop Patrick Mahomes? But if I look at the NBA, like who's going to win the NBA championship this year? There's
Yeah.
still
I
like
mean,
8 teams that could still do it.
yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's close. I mean, I think it's the NBA is relatively wide open. Whereas like we sit here and we look at the NFL, and if you are not banking on the Chiefs to win, then you are banking on a team that's 90% probably going to lose.
If you're not betting on the Chiefs, use a hater like me. And we need help this offseason. We're going to figure it out and come back strong next year.
Got to cut you guys off that haterade.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. Is I was like, man, there's so many teams right now that you could look at and be like, oh man, that's an NBA championship contender. I mean, like Boston's good. You got Milwaukee. Cleveland's been hot. The Knicks have been playing good basketball since they got Anunoby. I mean, like probably like Boston and the Bucks are probably contenders in the East, really. But like the Wolves are awesome out of nowhere this season.
For now.
For now, OKC is very good. The Clippers are the 3rd seed. Uh, Denver is still good. So like, I think if I had to pick somebody right now, I'd still pick Denver just because Jokic is still so dominant. But
Yeah.
I truly feel like the NBA is wide open right now. And it's so ironic because the NBA historically was one of the least wide open
Right.
leagues until Kevin Durant left the Warriors. And then like ever since then, ever since the Raptors won that championship, it's just like, I feel like any team could win any year. And it's been super enjoyable to watch the NBA playoffs. NFL playoffs
Yeah.
were fun too, but I feel like I enjoy the NBA a little bit more right now because it's a little bit more competitive. So I'm excited to dive into that with you. And I have these hot takes on
Yeah.
my phone. I'm just dying to throw out to Clint. So we got to get that scheduled. So,
Yeah.
but I'm looking forward to diving into it with you guys. But for now, that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. You can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. It's a long name, but you can't miss it. Super fun football season. We've been talking football for like 26, 27 weeks now.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for tuning in every week and listening to us talk about it. We really enjoyed doing it. Love football. I feel like with the Chiefs winning, I'm not going to miss football as much.
I'm kind of looking forward to doing literally anything else for a minute.
I know, like it'll be really fun to talk basketball and do March Madness, and then we'll be ready for the NFL draft because that's super fun. And Matt and I are going to go this year because it's in Detroit.
Yep.
But like I feel like I'm good for a little while on the football with what we just watched. So I'm like, yeah, it's not going to be as bad as it normally is. Where
Yeah.
I'm like, I need more football.
Need a little palate cleanser.
Yeah. So NBA off next week with my trip to Mexico. Coming back and doing 3 or 4 NBA pods March 19th. The week of March 19th, we're going to get into March Madness. We're going to do our tournament preview, give you guys our picks, do all that fun stuff, talk March Madness for a couple weeks. And then April is NFL draft month. Here we'll do 4 NFL draft episodes that I'm already planning. And then as soon as that is over, we'll be back for NBA playoffs. So a lot of fun stuff coming up, and appreciate you guys listening as always. But until 2 weeks from now, enjoy the regular season basketball, the regular season hockey, and then Matt and I will see you guys soon.
Yep.
So, bye guys.
Bye guys.
Bye,
Bye Robin.